Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is Sidra Amin, and I lead programs that invest to innovate. If we were to zoom in a bit, 2020 and 2021 have been exciting years for the male-led startups in Pakistan. However, a bleak number of deals closed by women-led companies is extremely alarming. We've had two to three deals closed by women-led companies in the 50 plus deals in 2021, and it just does not make a cut for an exclusive ecosystem. So we at WeRaise, which is a World Bank capital raise coaching program for women-led companies, are solving for some critical questions and challenges existing in the ecosystem in regards to the dearth of investable women-led companies, raising funds. And the project is being implemented by I2I, Valhalla Capital. And if we want to look for answers for the questions of how many startups in the pipeline for the future are led by women, how many of them are being looked at by the investor community seriously, and then among the startups that are raising, how many deals are closing by women-led startups. In our first cluster of WeRaise to support women-led startups in their fundraising efforts, we had two success stories. One was of Credit Book, and the other one is EcoEnergy, who raised their rounds. So today we have the CEO and co-founder of EcoEnergy, as well as EcoEnergy's coach for WeRaise program, Jan, with us. Hi, Jan and Shazia. Thank you for joining.
Morning.
Thank you for having us.
For those of you who don't know, Shazia is the CEO and co-founder of EcoEnergy, which is a tech company accelerating the adoption of solar in emerging markets as a part of global transition to a clean energy economy. And Jan is the director of Valhalla Private Capital and a coach for WeRaise. So over to you, Jan. Do you want to take the conversation from here?
Oh, thanks a lot, Sidra. And thanks to WeRaise for allowing me to be a part of this really wonderful project. And thanks for all of you for joining in. So, and good to see you again, Shazia. It's been a while. So congratulations on successfully closing your $285,000 bridge round. That's a great accomplishment. So how does it feel?
Thanks, Jen. And thank you guys so much for letting EcoEnergy participate in the program. It was really great to have Jan as the coach, and the whole WeRaise team worked really hard. We felt very supported throughout, and we really got a lot of value out of the program. So thank you for letting us participate. We did achieve our goal to raise our bridge round of funding, and we're happy about that. It feels good. Like it was a long time. It took us a long time to sort of get to the point where we figured out the right amount of money that we actually needed. And that took, that was like a very extensive process of whittling it down to what do we actually need to get to the next stage, you know?
Right. So when you started out in the program, you weren't thinking that you wanted to raise a bridge round. Walk us through your objectives coming into the program and how that evolved to the point where you successfully closed your round.
So when we came into the program, the idea was that we had a stable core business. Our business is one that revolves around doing solar energy installations across Pakistan. We had just added on an additional service, which is sort of like an O&M, operations and maintenance contract that we provide to our customers and to anybody who has solar. But what we were looking to do was build out this new platform, which for us was a new business, a digital platform to connect customers to solar suppliers, installers, and financiers. And so we wanted to raise a Series A that would support the development and the scale of this new digital platform. And so we started to do that, but we realized that we actually have a really good core business. And if we could sort of optimize the core business, then we would have enough money to invest in building out the platform at a slower pace. And so the consequence of that, of not raising that big Series A round, would be that we wouldn't be diluting ourselves. We could go a little bit more slowly. The growth could be a little bit more organic. we already have 85% of the platform already done. But for us, this was a big transition to go from one core business to an entirely new business. The new business is built off of what we already have, but the idea was that if we raise this big Series A, then we can jump into the platform more quickly. And I feel like that, I think what really changed over the course of the WeRaise program is that we saw that we actually have a really good core business. And maybe we can kind of leverage that and not go out and negotiate and go after VC money from a position of weakness where they're looking to invest in a new business, but instead we could build it on the back of the business that we had. And that's why we decided to raise the bridge round.
And would you say that is that the kind of the core insight that you gained through the program is just, exactly where you were and what you needed to leverage to move forward?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, we did a lot of work, Jan, as you know, on sort of what our story was. And when we started, we had this brand new deck for this new model that was really unproven, but really didn't sort of include anything that we've already built. And we have like a company that we've built over the course of 5 years. We've penetrated the market at a steady clip. We've dominated many markets, including the off-grid pay-as-you-go solar sector. So we just felt like the new one really wasn't very inclusive of what we already had done and achieved.
Right.
And so, I would say just sort of valuing what we had and figuring out how to optimize that was the key insight that we had.
So what do you, from where you sit right now, what do you see for the future of your business? And in particular, how are you thinking about your capital requirements going forward? And as part of that, would you say that the program or the coaching gave you any tools for thinking about that differently?
Yeah, I definitely think that it did. I think if the WeRaise program had been different and the coaches had been different, maybe like a bunch of VCs who are like, go after the big money, we maybe would have just succumbed to the temptation, which we were starting to do. But I feel like you had a very measured approach about, well, hold on a second. What do you actually need? What have you already built? What do you need to continue to build? And how much money do you really need to get there? And I think that was greatly influential for me, as how do you withstand this pressure, particularly over the last couple of years when you see all this money flooding into Pakistan. Well, I'm not interested in raising a bunch of money and then, just the company breaking down after a year because we don't know how to absorb that funding. I'm more interested in building something, as I've done in the past, that can stand the test of time and knows how to innovate, knows how to pivot. And we've done that actually quite successfully. We've reached additional market segments every year, and we've been we've been increasing the revenue that we've been able to generate sort of quarter on quarter. So there's no need, just because there's money that's now flooding into Pakistan. It was really hard because I started a long time ago, and at the time that I started, there wasn't any money, and it was a very hard sell. There wasn't anybody in Pakistan that had any money. All of the money that I raised in my seed round, about $2.5 million in quasi equity and $3 million debt facility. I didn't draw down on the whole thing, but all of that was raised from outside of Pakistan. Yeah. And it was very difficult to raise because in 2017, nobody was interested in investing in Pakistan, and there was nobody in Pakistan who was investing in the startup space. Right. So I think what happened was that all of a sudden money started flowing in. People saw this great opportunity in Pakistan, and you really allowed me or enabled me to stand my ground. And even though all this money is rushing in, there's this river, of excitement and money and funding where it's never been available, and I could have been taken away by that wave. And I'm really grateful to you and for the program to just be like, well, hold on. Just because money is available doesn't mean that the terms that will be offered at will be the most favorable to you as a founder. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be best for you or your company or the growth of your company, Right.
Not necessarily right for you right now. Could be in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And it could be in the future, and it might be, but it's much better to sort of negotiate and raise from a position of strength when we have a little bit more quantitative data behind this new, like a new pivot that we want to make, or a new product line
Right.
we want to test out. I think I heard this a couple of years ago. You're much more likely to die from drowning than you are from starvation.
That's right.
I really think that's true for a lot of companies, is that you take the money because it's on the table, and then you're under a lot of pressure by people who may or may not be invested in your growth as a company. You're one of a number of companies in the portfolio, and they put you under immediate pressure to turn that money around.
Mm-hmm.
And your company might not be yet in the place for 10x return. And they might pull their support out and might have a different exit strategy, or not be as patient as you need them to be. So I think,
and just to be clear, if for certain companies at a particular point in time, venture might be the rocket fuel that's right for them right then and there, but not necessarily for everybody at every particular point in time. So let me ask you, Shazia, based on your progression and what you've learned in the program, would you recommend the program for other female entrepreneurs in Pakistan?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great team. The Eye to Eye team is really great. The Valhalla team is really great. You and Kulsum were really good coaches, very engaged, very responsive. The most work that we did was around sort of our story. What is the value that we're bringing to the market? What is the, kind of like the strength of what we've built, and figuring out the way to talk about that, and then to sort of objectively identify what are our future potential streams of revenue. I think that I think that it was a really good program, and I think it would be beneficial for any female entrepreneur. You guys were really invested in our success, and something that I really liked was not just the coaches and the WeRaise staff, but also the opportunity to work in peer groups with the other companies.
Right.
They're, valuable lessons that I've learned along the way. If I can save someone some pain and some heartache by sharing my experience with them, I was happy to do that. At the same time, I saw opportunities for cross collaboration, and many of the WeRaise cohort actually became our customers too. So I was happy. So a really great experience.
Oh, that's terrific. And even for the coaches, engaging with the whole group of founders participating in the project has been a great experience, in addition to the teams that you're actually coaching.
Well, I would love to hear more about your perspective. What were your sort of key takeaways? I know that you've done a lot of work with female entrepreneurs, but with entrepreneurs generally in emerging markets. So I would love to hear about your experience doing that, and then specifically about how your experience working with Pakistani entrepreneurs was different.
Yeah, it's been an interesting career arc for me. I mean, I guess I'm a little older than I guess most of than all of the founders in the program, for sure. I practiced law for 30 years, and I did deal work, investing, financing, restructuring, buying and selling businesses. And what I learned in that period is that while there are common patterns, every founder and every business and every deal is unique. Everyone has its own features. Founders bring different perspectives, and the culture of their companies are different. And so solving problems ends up being different for each company. And as an advisor, I learned, over many years that you really have to be attuned to that. If you're not attuned to the unique features of the founder and the particular business you're working with, then the deal you're crafting might not fit. And so for me, I loved hearing the founder's stories, the founder, the journey of their business, and the two aren't quite the same. They're a little bit different. Understanding the real objectives, which surprisingly are often unspoken and even not necessarily conscious. And so you have to pull those things out. And so when I started investing in startups a little over a decade ago, I found it was exactly the same scenario, except I wasn't advising. I was actually doing the deals. So that was kind of fun for me because I was able to bring all the skills that I learned in my professional career to bear on it. And then, of course, I'm a feminist at heart, right from my early high school, university days in the 1970s, which in North America was a very active time for women's rights. And the law played a really large role on that. Family law, reproductive rights, equality law were all at the root of those early struggles. And I was involved in it a lot in my university days, and my life partner has been involved in it throughout her career. So, I feel the chance to now be working with female founders is again going back to my roots. So, I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world. And yeah, we've done workshops, around the world, particularly a lot in Vietnam, in Chile, in Peru. And every time I do a workshop, we bring together local women who are either active or want to become active angel investors and female founders, and we do workshops. And that's been, and we do it, kind of on the side, on our own time, as part of when we're invited into a country by usually an accelerator, an incubator, or a government. And so we do those programs, and through that, I've learned that there's just tremendous consistencies and similarities in the experiences of founders in general, but female founders in particular. And so that's been an interesting
What are
journey for
those?
me.
I would love to hear more. Like, tell me, what are the similarities amongst female founders, irrespective of geographic location?
Okay, well, there are a few. So one of them is female founders for sure have a more difficult time raising capital, and that's statistically proven through various studies. And investors, and whether they're female investors or male investors, tend to ask female founders different kinds of questions about their businesses. They ask questions that kind of tend to be more passive and negative. And so how do
Kind of paternalistic.
Paternalistic for sure. I think maybe female investors don't do that as much, but yes, paternalistic and outright sexism. We find in North America there's less of the overt sexism and more sort of the unwritten sexism, but those are there for sure. And just the struggles of balancing like starting a business, as you well know, is super hard. It's hard work, and raising money is even harder. It's really hard work, and it feels sometimes, I think, like an assault on your ego, because people are always challenging you and questioning you, and you can sometimes walk away from those meetings, think, well, what do I know? Like, it's just a constant barrage of questions. And when you're juggling that and family commitments, that's super tough. And I think for mentors and coaches, you have to be attuned to that for sure. But I think there were some differences in Pakistan. Well, one difference in particular, and that is that I think the challenges that female founders have are a little bit greater. I mean, I think the in my experience, which is limited, so I have to be careful here, but from what I've observed, women do not have as much agency over their lives in Pakistan as we do in North America. The challenges of balancing the commitment of being a founder and the work that's required with family commitments, and family commitments, I think, in Pakistan are broader than they are in North America. I have my commitment to my spouse and kids, more so to my kids than my spouse. But I think female founders in Pakistan, their obligations and their commitments
Or to their
are more
in-laws,
onerous to
more
in-laws.
societal. There's a lot of societal
and
culture.
yeah, and even inside the home, there just doesn't seem to be the same degree of agency, and I think that makes it harder.
I mean, that's borne out. That's a fact. That's borne out by the statistics. Pakistan has very low female labor participation rates, something around 22 to 23%. And some of it is just because of the societal stigma that's attached to working, but also some of it is because of practical considerations. It's very difficult for women, particularly middle and lower middle class women, to just get out of their house and get transportation to go to an office or to a workplace. So there's so many more challenges I feel that exist for Pakistani women. Even for us to hire and retain women has been a challenge, and we've had to put a lot of policies in place to facilitate and make it easier. So one thing we've done is to allow people to work from home so that they don't have to go to the workspace, you know, because we're missing out on a lot of very talented staff just because they can't make it into the office without getting harassed or groped.
And that's been a lesson for me as a coach. And I think if somebody's going to be involved in coaching founders, like that's stuff that you have to become attuned to and find out, talk to other people and find out what the workarounds are and how you can help some of the founders, to the extent that it comes up in the coaching, navigate some of those issues. And of course, the I2I team has been great for that.
Thanks, Jan. And this is something what we discussed right now when we do our investment readiness coaching. This is something that comes up repeatedly, that the triple labor and then the mobility, it's a massive challenge for women entrepreneurs, especially when they're looking to raise, because they don't have access to the networks as much as male-led startups do. And so it's not just, a gap on the other side of the table where, people are not putting in money, but also access, limitations for women entrepreneurs who are trying to raise and are accessing those networks. So that's definitely, one of the great insights that you shared. But no, in general, thank you for having this conversation. I think even from Shazia's experience and, her raising this round successfully, I'm sure it's not been easy. So, thank you for sharing your experience with us. And having this conversation on the fireside chat, because I feel like a lot of women entrepreneurs would be watching this and would be looking forward to joining the program and seeing that the value that this has brought to you, they would be more eager to join. And just to wrap this up on one final note, if you're a woman entrepreneur in Pakistan and have a high growth startup and are looking to open your round, please feel free to reach out to us. You can find more information about us on www.weraise.pk. You would be looking at bespoke coaching around investment readiness and accessing a vast network of mentors and investors by joining this program. And of course, we have alumni like Shazia would be guiding you, and coaches, both local and expert coaches like Jan and other international coaches that we have on board because of Valhalla and Afino being partners. You'd be accessing a lot of wider networks that you have not accessed before. So do reach out to us. And thank you again, Jan and Shazia. If you want to share one last note before we wrap this up.
I would love to, if I may. So one thing that I would say is that the other big takeaway that we had was not the investment amount, but more like, what do you need in order to scale? And we found that, yes, we needed money, but we also needed to identify sort of what our deficiencies were and what we what skill sets that we needed the investors to bring in order to help us scale. So if you're a founder, don't just think about how much money you need, think about what skills you're missing, or what, if you had, what skill sets, if you had these, or if you had board members or investors that could bring these, could actually help you to scale. Because we needed people with expertise in supply chain, we needed people with expertise in marketing, we need, and so we raised the amount of money, we over raised on what we wanted, but more importantly, we raised from people with the right skills that will help us to scale. And so that to me was a much bigger win than the amount.
Yeah. And
Thanks,
for me,
Shazia.
I would say one of the important things, and this is kind of a negative message in the sense that raising money from VCs and risk capital investors is super hard. It's hard, except for maybe 5 or 6 regions in the world. It's hard everywhere. Most of North America is in what we call investor flyover zones. They don't stop where I live. I think that's always for different reasons. I come from a small population province. Pakistan is huge, 5th largest country in the world. They're both flyover zones for VCs for very different reasons. So there are strategies you can undertake to overcome that, but it's hard work. And can involve lots and lots and lots of pitches. Even in Silicon Valley, founders typically do 50 to 60 to 70 pitches before they raise. There are huge exceptions for that, for sure, but it's tough work. And so, finding out what's really right for you, as Shazia said, just becomes even more important before you launch on that journey.
Thank you for sharing that, Jan. Again, thank you so much to both of you for your time. We'll be wrapping this up now. For those of you who joined us from Pakistan, have a lovely evening and thank you for joining. And Jan and Shazia, I know this is morning for you, so have a lovely day. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye.